Hello, we are going live. We're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Late Night 99 live stream. So, today I was wanting to talk a little bit about low budget filmmaking, etc., etc. How do I do it? It's not like there's some big secret about how to be a low budget filmmaker, but I wanted to, talk about some of the things that I did and how I got started making films, because it's not as mysterious and difficult as I think people make it out to be. And I think it's definitely something worth talking about, because the more that, in my mind, the more that it's normalized the idea of making low budget films or movies with your friends as an art form, as a hobby, as an activity to participate in, the more people might give it a go, because it's really fun. I enjoy doing it, and so obviously we're live. So if anybody jumps into this, feel free to ask any questions along the way. If you want to, shoot anything in the chat, I'll chat with you. And if you're watching this, if you're rewatching this after it's already come out, thank you for watching. It's pleasure to have you here. So I think I was just going to start rambling. I don't really have an agenda for this. I posted on Twitter and YouTube asking if anyone had topics they wanted me to talk about, and I had two that came up. So I guess I'll just get one of them out of the way now, and the other one I suppose will come up as we talk more about low budget filmmaking. So the first one from Shot by Shot on YouTube, the question was for me to talk about in the live was, what do I think about remakes? So, hey, and he's here. Shot by Shot's here. So I'm talking about remakes now, buddy. So thank you for the question. I think I don't really, this is going to be an underwhelming answer. I don't really have strong opinions about remakes one way or the other. I think I can see the frustration that some people may have if a franchise or a film that they enjoy or are familiar with has been remade and it's not quite as good as the original, or not in the way that they wanted. I think the whole concept of this is not something that I'd have a problem with. I think the idea of making something that's already been made and approaching it in a different way, or getting the rights and remaking the film as a concept, I don't have a problem with it. Films that I'm thinking of, for example, Evil Dead 2 is essentially a remake of Evil Dead 1. And Evil Dead 2, I think, is objectively better than the first one. And I think what Sam Raimi was doing there, and there's a plot reason, like it works plot wise. You can watch both of them and it makes sense, right? But I think that the whole concept, the whole reason behind it for him, in my opinion, and I'm sure he's talked about it, I just don't have the sources here, was that he had more resources and more funding to make his original vision better with the remake. And I think that's something that I kind of identify with. I think in some ways I would like to remake some of my films with different resources. I think that would be really fun. Over the Next Horizon, for example, I think if I was to do that again today, it would be a lot better. In a number of ways, I would change a lot of things. But I think as a director, I think that's different if you're wanting to remake your own film and do it better. Another example of that is Michael Haneke with Funny Games. So he made Funny Games. I don't know what, I'll just look it up. Funny Games original film. I think it was German, but I don't know. Funny Games. What is the country of origin of Funny Games? Come on, IMDb. Don't let me down. Austria. Okay. So Funny Games was an Austrian film that he remade with an American cast for an American audience. And Funny Games, the remake was a shot-for-shot recreation of his film, and I think that's really fun. And I can see why he may have wanted to do that as well, to reach a different audience. And it kind of strikes me as a the sort of thing that I would do, where it feels like he set a challenge for himself. Like, can I make the exact same movie again? But that may not be the case. Okay, sorry. Shot for shot goes, only like remakes if they do something better than the original or does something new with the source material. Yeah, sure. Like that makes sense to me. I didn't like the remake of The Lion King. It was a shot for shot remake and does nothing new. Doesn't hit the same as the original and does nothing new. Yeah, that's fair. I'm not a huge fan of the live action remakes. The Disney I don't think I've watched a single one of them, to be quite honest. So I don't really have anything to input there. I don't see myself ever filming a remake or a reboot of someone else's film. I can't see that being super appealing to me. But I think what happens more often than not is that people will shoot a sequel to a film, like let's say Alien Romulus, and it's very similar to some of the Alien films that have come before and has a lot of the similar beats. I think there's more likelihood of that happening, maybe for me, than just, I don't know, picking a film at random and doing a remake of it. So, all right, moving on from remakes, I wanted to talk about and if you've joined, welcome, hello, whoever you are, mysterious second viewer, who'll leave in 10 seconds, but, or not, prove me wrong. What I wanted to talk about was my journey into filmmaking, and where that sort of started, and how I approach low budget films. Now, I could start this journey when I was a child and my developing interest in making films, but I feel like that would be possibly boring and may not be very constructive, because I don't think there are very many 8 or 9-year-olds tuning in. So instead, I was going to start talking about when I made the conscious choice that I wanted to take my filmmaking beyond what I was doing with my friends and with my family, for fun, and when I started to try and pivot that towards filmmaking for entertainment, and it's that pivot that I wanted to kind of talk about. So, previously, before, when I was making films for fun, for my own enjoyment, how I started, like what I was doing at that time, was I was borrowing my friends' cameras, I was borrowing my parents' camera, and I was editing. I think a lot of the films I edited on like Windows Movie Maker. I was just with whatever I had, and then eventually I ended up getting the Adobe Suite as a Christmas present. I was sort of just making films with nothing other than a camera and filming them, and they were very they were only. I didn't have all the same knowledge that I had now. But when I started to make that transition, at first I thought, hey, what I'm going to need to, if I'm going to make entertaining films, if I'm going to make films that are like quote unquote good now, I need to up it in terms of the gear that I have. That was my first thought, was, hey, I need better gear. And it never crossed my mind where I thought, hey, I'm going to need more people here. I think I always had the mindset of, hey, I think I feel confident that I can do some of these things myself. I think I can make movies with my friends. And what made me feel like that, I think, was, oh, hey, it's Jordan. Hello. How you doing? I think what made me feel like confident to make films with my friends was the people that I was watching on YouTube. I think YouTube is a big part to play in this. I was watching as a kid people like Freddie Wong, Corridor Digital, and as I got older and more mature, I was watching like Film Riot and Indie Mogul and channels like that. I the concept for me as a young person that I can make films by myself or with my friends was not foreign to me, like it is to maybe some other people who have been in the industry a long time. So that wasn't a learning curve that I needed to go through. But when I first started, I was like, I need all the gear if I'm going to do this. So I got a loan off my wife, and I bought a camera, which I don't regret doing because this camera has stayed with me the whole time. I'll go and fetch it. Hold on. All right. This is my camera. This is my Panasonic G85. It's a Lumix Micro Four Thirds camera. It has been bashed up. It has been on many, many, many productions and has served me faithfully. This camera, focus. Sorry, I need to trigger the autofocus. Or has it been unfocused the whole time? Sorry, my OCD's gonna get in the way of this stream. Hold on. Let me pull up Dell Camera Manager. Oh, what a nightmare. This is why I don't this is why I could never be a live streamer, because my brain would just continuously break every time something goes wrong. So thank you for joining me in this adventure. All right, I'm just gonna have to abandon it. You get unfocused, Alex, today. I apologize. This is what I need to do. This is why I need to be able to do takes for things, because otherwise my brain will just explode. Anyway, this camera I bought for $600, and that is very cheap in camera land, and it was my little investment into my filmmaking journey. And on top of that, I think I bought a bunch of light stands from Amazon, just like newer light stands. I got some light bulbs for the lights as well. I didn't have LEDs. I had bulbs, which is, don't do that. If you're wanting to get lights, just get LEDs. And then I also got like a shotgun mic. I also got a tripod, obviously. So I had some of these like basic things, and so they were the cameras, and that was the camera and the gear that I was using, and then I just went to work. If I was going to do it again, and this is maybe advice for you, shot for shot, or anyone else who's here and is wanting to sort of begin filmmaking, you don't know where to start. You don't need to buy a $600 camera. You just use what you have. This is a camera that I purchased from eBay for $50. I've made like 3 films on this camera. I will make many more on this camera. The extra expenses, the battery was dead, so I had to go to Battery World and buy a replacement battery. It came with a little SD card. Some of the issues that you might come across with these old cameras is they might use like a memory stick or camera storage that you don't that you can't buy anymore. So you really probably in total this cost me $100 because I had to buy all those extra things for it. But you can just use something like that. You can use your iPhone. I made a video about that earlier. I know that that Jordan and the Doomed guys have heaps of videos on smartphone filmmaking as well, which I referenced in my video too. So talk about remakes, hey? But you can use whatever camera you have. You do not need to buy a DSLR camera. And if you do, just get a secondhand. Seriously, just get a secondhand one. Go on. In Australia, we have Gumtree, but go on Craigslist. Go on eBay. just get a second, go to an auction, try and buy a camera cheap. You don't need expensive gear. You don't need lighting for the for the first like maybe 3 or 4 films that I made for Late Night 99. I used all these lights, and I borrowed lights and I overlit everything. And you can kind of tell if you watch Glim or Vigil or any of the like earlier films. Just don't even worry about that. My first feature, Over the Next Horizon, I didn't use any lights. It was just all natural lighting. You don't need, if you can be creative and just experiment, you will learn. If you say I'm going to make a feature film with no lights, and you just persist through it and try and get nice looking images with practical lighting, just what you have around you, you can get away with so much. A lot of the lights I used, like that lamp over there in the background, there's another lamp over there. I used lamps, I used ceiling lights, I used porch lights, did a lot of backlighting. You can get away with a lot of things in the lighting realm. And then that sort of takes me to like the sound side of things as well. This isn't as structured of a video as I was anticipating, but anyway, you're getting what you get. Sound. For most of my films, when I was starting, I would just slap a shotgun mic on top of the camera, like so, and I'll just record the dialogue close to people's faces. That's a totally acceptable way to record sound. I've got like a boom mic set up and labs now that I'm using, and you can do that. But you seriously, if you're wanting to start filmmaking, if you're wanting to start this journey, if you're wanting to get into it, you don't need expensive cameras, you don't need expensive lights, you don't need expensive sound gear. You can just start, and that would be my strong recommendation, is to not stress about that stuff so much, because I suppose what's less important than the technical aspects of filmmaking, I think I said that wrong. The technical aspects are way less important than the story and the strength of your story. So if you have story structure, if you're able to write a film that has interesting characters, that has interesting dialogue, that has a story that moves and progresses and keeps you engaged, people will forgive a bad camera and people will forgive bad sound. And if anything, when you're starting off, that like pacing and editing are far more important skills to have than how to light a shot and film a scene. I think I learned those in reverse order. So taking it back to my journey. Sorry, my phone's just blowing up. I want to make sure there's no issues. So what am I saying? The journey for me started off with my purchasing all this gear and going, I'm going to make the most beautiful films. I'm going to make the most beautiful films that have ever been made. I'm going to light them very well. I'm going to shoot them very well. And that was my priority coming in. I approached it with the view to make great films, great looking films, as opposed to films that actually told interesting stories. So let me jump in and read some comments here. So Shot by Shot goes, bro, I need some freaking tips for writing some interesting dialogue between two characters. Well, if you're still here, let me know and I can provide you some of those tips. I recently started using Canon EOS R. My stepdad lets me use this, and I get one for Christmas. It's pretty awesome. Yes, any DSLR camera is going to be fantastic. Then Jordan goes, Doom Productions only use Canon EOS Rs. They're pretty awesome cameras. You can get them pretty cheap too. Yeah, sweet. Okay, so I think maybe a good natural progression from here is, so I've sort of talked about gear. You don't need insane amounts of gear. You don't need expensive gear. So let's just strip this right back. Let's just say all you have is your Canon EOS R, just your basic DSLR camera, and you're needing to make a film. I would stop right there, and before you even start filming, which you can do, that's totally valid to just start filming and making up films as you go along. That's how you're going to learn those technical aspects. But as far as the story aspects, I would recommend, and my tips for writing is this. I used to get really caught up in the dialogue, like what exactly is being said, what exactly is being said in each scene, and is that dialogue interesting? And that's an important thing to think about, because you want interesting dialogue between the characters. You may have watched Tarantino or Aaron Sorkin films, and you're going like, man, I just really want that. I want really interesting dialogue, and that's what's going to be engaging. My recommendation would be, more importantly than the dialogue, is going to be the story. And what I mean by that is, your characters aren't going to have anything interesting to talk about if nothing interesting is happening. I'll repeat that. Your characters are not going to have anything interesting to talk about if they're not in an interesting movie. So I watched a video from the South Park creators. Just randomly, it popped up in my algorithm, and they were talking about how they structure their stories and how they write out their story beats. So it's called beats when you have when you're talking about each thing that happens in the film, like this happens and this happens and this happens. And I'm going to butcher it because they worded it way better than I will. But how people sorry, I've just applied for a bunch of jobs, so if my phone goes off, I will be checking it to make sure that it's not a employer trying to contact me. All right, so I'm going to totally butcher it, but how they explained it was, a lot of people write their films and go and structure it like this. This event happens, and then this event happens, and then this event happens. So character wakes up in the morning in their room, and then they go to work. And then at work, they see this thing happening. And then this happened, or whatever the story is. That's about it. I'll try and think of an example in one of my films. That is not very interesting. Probably Don't Come. So my film Don't Come follows this. A man is talking to his brother on the phone in his car, and then he eats a sandwich, and then he calls an investor, and then he calls this person, and then he arrives at a construction site, and then he goes to take photos so that he can do a fraudulent like insurance claim, and then he does this. That is not very interesting at all, because it's just a sequence of events. There's no reason to watch the next scene, because there's nothing that's making you want to keep watching more. What they talked about was that between each beat, there needs to be either a but or a therefore. So this happens, therefore this happens. So there's a reason for the next scene happening. But complication, therefore this happens. And that's going to be, even if you write out your script, because I know you're working on a feature script right now, right? So if you write out your script and have each of the scenes just in a Google Doc, just a summary of each scene, and in between each scene, is it a therefore or a but, or it is a or is it a then? And that those are going to be important distinctions to make. An example of this is, let me think of a film of mine that has this happen. Maybe The Way of Death. That's going to be a good example. So in my film, The Way of Death, a man is driving in his car to work. But his friend calls him and says that there's a disaster. Therefore, the man calls in sick to work. When he arrives at the house of the friend, he sees that the friend has killed his wife. Or he arrives at the house where his friend is, but finds out that the friend has killed his wife. Therefore, he goes to the hardware store to buy the tools that he needs to cover up the murder. But the friend has called his mum and confessed to her. Therefore, they get into an argument. So I've butchered the explanation, but that's sort of where I'm thinking is going to be way more interesting. So in your film, to write interesting dialogue, I would first make sure that your characters are existing in a film that's interesting and that has interesting things happening, because the dialogue is the vessel that's going to carry us from each scene into the next scene, and it's going to explain to us not only what's going on, but how the characters are feeling and reacting to this, because the characters are the people that we're viewing, the characters are the lens that we're viewing the film from. So I think that's going to be, that's my main piece of advice about writing dialogue. It's not even about dialogue. It's about putting your characters in an interesting film and having them react to it. And then maybe more specifically around dialogue and writing characters, is you're going to want your characters to be what I would do is, underneath each line of dialogue, or if you're doing a review of your script, each line of dialogue I would then type underneath it, or think about. For me, I need to type everything out and lay it all out, because I'm a visual person. But I would have underneath each line of dialogue what the character is really saying, and then what they're actually saying. So if your friend at school or whatever has frustrated you, you're not going to say to him, unless you're like neurodivergent or something, or an extremely direct person, you're not going to say to them, "You have upset me because you did this." You're going to say something else. They might ask you out, ask you to sit with them at lunch or whatever, and you go, "Oh, no, not really feeling like it." And underneath that might be something else. There might be something underneath that where you're actually meaning, "You really pissed me off earlier, and I don't want to spend so much time with you." But what the character or what you would actually say is different. So when you're writing this dialogue, my recommendation would be to write not what the character is feeling exactly. Know what the character is feeling. You need to know what your characters are feeling and what they're wanting in each given scene. But what they actually say is not necessarily going to be that. And how this is going to help, and I did this with my latest feature, Big Smoke, is I had a video conference with my lead actors, and we went through almost every single line of dialogue in the entire film, and we wrote down what the character was feeling, or what the character meant by each thing that was said. And that really helped them with their performances, because we could refer to it when we were on set and go, "Oh, so with this line, what's the character feeling in this moment?" And it was a really great reference point to help them deliver better performances, because I just watched Vampires Kiss, and I saw Nicolas Cage say "boo-hoo" in a convincing way while he was crying. So you can deliver any line of dialogue in a convincing way. It's packing that emotion behind it, which is maybe more an acting tip than anything. But that's where we're at the moment. So I just wanted to return to what the live stream was about, which is how I make $0 films. So and I'm going to spend another couple of minutes talking about that, and then we might wrap it up, because I am not very good at live streaming. So, but I find it fun, and it's a good way to connect with people. And I think you're on a 4x4 streak, shot by shot, of joining the live streams. So there you go. Congratulations. So, all right, here we are. $0 filmmaking. My suggestion to anyone who is feeling like there's a big barrier to them beginning filmmaking as an art form, or as artistic expression, would be, and I've said this before, would be just to do it. And if you're feeling anxious about participating in filmmaking or telling a story, I would actually write down what are the barriers? Why don't you want to do this? What are you feeling like is in the way of you doing it? And and then from that point where you're where you identified what those barriers are or what's getting in the way of you um, making your movie, I would challenge you that any single one of those things is not an actual barrier. If you feel like you don't, there's a particular role that you don't have in your production team. Like, I don't have this person, I don't have a gaffer, I don't have a lighting person. That is something you need to throw in the bin straight away, because it is an illusion that you need all these people to make a compelling story. And I would challenge you that you don't need any of those people to make your film. They will help if you do have them. I'm not saying that big productions don't need them, but I'm saying small productions definitely don't need them. If you're a beginner filmmaker, if you're starting out in your journey making films, you literally just need a cheap camera, and you can go and tell an interesting story. Sometimes an even more interesting story than anything else that that you can make with a crew and an expensive camera. And it's about, like, Big Smoke for me. The film that I made, Big Smoke, recently had a pretty large crew. For me, it was a small crew compared to other films, but I had my own sound guy, I had my own camera guy, I had a assistant director, kind of. I had a writer on set helping me with the story. Some of these people were the same person, but we had lighting support, we had a first AC, and all these roles are really important, and they really helped. Why they were important was because the scope of the film was getting bigger. The scope of the film was growing, and we needed more people to facilitate that. But if you're coming up with films and you're designing, if you're crafting ideas that can be done on a low budget, if you're crafting ideas that can be done with a small amount of actors, with a small amount of risk, is what I'm saying. A lot of people plan their first film, and it's this huge, fast project with massive stakes, and everyone wants to do a bank robbery, everyone wants to do this, everyone wants to do that, everyone wants to do big fight scenes, everyone wants to do zombies. But if you don't have access to, like, a makeup artist, you're going to find it really hard to make a zombie film. And I think that's a good analogy for a crew. Like, if you're wanting to do a film where there's a nightclub scene, or you're wanting to do a film that's shot at nighttime, if you don't have a lighting guy or lighting gear, that's going to be really hard to do. So my recommendation would be to come up with films that you can do, as opposed to the films that you might necessarily want to do. Because if you're making films and you're enjoying the process and the artistic merits of just making stuff, and enjoying the fact that you're creating and having fun just filming things, and it shouldn't really matter. In some ways, it shouldn't really matter what you're filming. It's more the fact that you're doing it, and you're learning, and you're getting more tools for your toolbox, and you're going to have a better chance for success, and you're going to be getting a head start on everyone else if you're making films that don't have the limitations that that potentially other projects could impose on you. You're identifying what those limitations are, and then not making films that you can't make. Example is, what if I was to start my filmmaking journey from scratch? I would take this Sony handy camera, and I would make a film where I only used the camera audio. I was using the footage from this camera, and I would just make a fan footage movie. People would watch it, people would enjoy it, and I would learn a lot, not about the technical aspects, because you can learn that anytime. You can learn that by watching tutorials. You can learn that by going on film sets. I would learn if I went back in time and made a film with this camera instead. I would learn not about the technical aspects, but I would learn about um, story structure. I would learn about writing dialogue. I would learn about acting if I was acting in it. And I think that is the that is the key to low budget filmmaking. And Cody would agree. Anyone else would agree. It's not about making the most visually interesting films or the technically the strongest films that you can make. It's about making films that tell interesting stories, that have interesting characters, and that go somewhere. Because when you're in a scene, you want to know, you want to be compelled to watch the following scene in the film. Otherwise, you're going to switch it off. I do, like, if I'm watching a film, like I have a low attention span. So like if I'm watching a film and I'm not asking the question, what happens next, I will not be so interested. And it doesn't need to be, oh, will the city blow up in the next scene, or how will they save Gotham or whatever. I've got my Batman hat on, so it's are we going to save Gotham? No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this woman going to get eaten by a shark today when she goes to the beach? When will she get eaten by a shark? Or it could be anything. Will I got to stop the compulsion to come up with examples, but you know what I mean. It's less important, the technical aspect. It's way more important to be telling interesting stories, and once you figure that part out, everything else will fall in line. All the other things, all the other aspects of filmmaking are skills that you can learn, except for the storytelling. And then by extension, and I'm not sure what you think about this, Cody, but by extension, editing as well, because I feel like editing is a really essential part of storytelling, less so a technical aspect of the art form. Like editing is an important part of filmmaking, and there are skills related to editing, but it doesn't take any skill to toggle between the select tool and the cut tool. Like editing is just cutting scenes together, and that is an instinct, less a skill. It's impossible to have enough money when making a movie. The best you can hope for is enough freedom. Yay, that's really cool. I'm gonna get that embroidered on a tea towel, Cody. It's really beautiful. So yeah, that would be my suggestion, is to engage in filmmaking activities or exercises, and to exercise the muscles, to exercise the areas of your brain that are related to storytelling and the instincts related to that. And in my opinion, the more stories that you tell, the more opportunities you're going to have to exercise that. Editing is your favorite part of filmmaking, because and I suppose that links in, and this is a nice spot to wrap it up, because I'm gonna go and make a coffee and finish my chores around the house before I go to work. But editing is a part of filmmaking where you have the most freedom, right? It's you can turn a film completely around, and you can completely recontextualize the film in the edit. And I think that is, for me, why editing is the most fun part as well, is because it's the area that you have the most freedom, and it's the area where you're actually telling the story. Because you can get, and this is what is related to Marana and Debut as well, the anthology films I've made this year. I had so much fun with these films because I felt like I was a master puppeteer and I'm creating these stories. That's what was so fun to me in the edit for these films, is I could, some of the filmmakers like Matt Berry, McSweeney brothers, they've gone and released their director's cuts, and Gage as well, Cliff, they've gone and released their director's cuts of their Marana segments. And let me tell you, they're very different to if you watch the Marana segments in the anthology that I made. And being able to, like the editing room holds so much power, and I totally understand why some filmmakers. I know that Cody wasn't super open to participating in Arana or another anthology film, and the reason for that is very fair because you're losing the storytelling part of editing, and if like me, that's why you're there. Not doing that doesn't really, like if you're not editing your film and like let's say you're shooting, like I would find it really difficult being a cinematographer, going and shooting films with other filmmakers for other directors, and then not being a part of the storytelling in the editing room and what actually comes out of that film. Yeah, you can't make a movie if you can't edit it. It's not much of is too much of what filmmaking is to me. Yeah, I'd 100% agree. So let's just take that as the primary lesson from today's TED Talk. Everyone is how to do zero budget filmmaking is less about the technical aspect. It's more about storytelling, and we've discussed editing a fair bit. I think that one of the best ways to become a storyteller and to become a filmmaker who can tell compelling stories is in the editing room. And let's say you don't even have a camera, right? Is it possible to make a film with just stock footage? I don't know. Ask Cody. Ask anyone. Yes, it is. You can make a film with just stock footage. Go and watch Stock Shark on actually Shot by Shot's a child, Cody. So maybe you need you need to do a family friendly cut of it or like a censored version. But Stock Shark's a little bit inappropriate. Yeah, Stock Shark's okay. I take that back. Stock Shark is an 18 plus film. Age restricted, quick. So, but regardless, you can make a film with just stock footage. Watch the Don't Tell Show's Stock Shark review. There you go. That's a family friendly version of Stock Shark. But I'm telling you, you don't need, even if you don't have a camera that shoots in 10-bit raw, you can use your phone or a camcorder. And if you don't have that, you can use stock footage. It's about rehearsing and practicing and developing that skill. And once you have that skill, and you're feeling confident, then I would be investing more in the visual aspect and learning those skills, because there's skills you can learn it. Why is it 18? There's lots of swearing, and it's got some sexual content. Yeah, there we go. But all right, I'm gonna wrap her up. Thanks for participating, Jordan, Cody, and Shot by Shot. I will maybe do another live later. I've got a few videos that are up since I've done my last live. So we did an anthology film with a bunch of different filmmakers that you can go and check out. It's about 30 minutes long. It was intended to be a feature, but we didn't end up reaching feature length because a couple of the filmmakers that were shooting for it had a personal things come up and they weren't able to participate. We have the trailer for Decay of Now, which is a post-apocalyptic film that I'm making. That did actually pretty well on YouTube. It's got nearly as many views as Rachel Hunger, so I'm pretty happy about that. What else have we got on? Debut's the main thing. I did an interview with a filmmaker, RJ Reddle, that I'll definitely recommend checking out. So he is one of the films that he wrote was selected for the Cannes Film Festival, which is crazy. So if you wanted to watch that and have a chat with, or not have a chat, but watch me have a chat with a Cannes nominated film director, you can go and do that. I'm going to bail out. Have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.